Good evening, folks. I'm just going to talk through my trade breakdown today on GJ. So I took a buy during London session on pound yen, and I'm just going to talk through sort of my thoughts on that and my management of the trade. So just starting from the 4 hour, my sort of session bias is determined by the previous two candles leading into the London session, and as we can see, 10 o'clock opened, it was a bullish close, and the 2 a.m. 4 hour candle closed bearish. Okay, now I know where I'm looking for trades based on my weekly outlook, which is above the daily resistance at 157,960. If we can reject 4 hour support and resistance zone, we can then continue to the upside. And the 2 a.m. candle did reject that heavily, and we actually closed just within the zone. But I know we have a clean area to the left based on this, and not based on this solely because we know that's more fundamental driven, but because we have pushed up, we've tapped into that today. I know there's a good chance that we can then get there again because we've already got to that position today. There is a few levels within here that I was paying attention to, specifically on the 1 hour time frame, which I will go through. But even though we have a mixed bias, and buys and sells do make sense, I'm favoring buys. I don't fancy sell. Okay, so if I just drop down to the 30-minute time frame, this is how the 4 hour candle closed. So looking at this on the 1 hour, the 1 hour's formed a support, right, which is nice. However, it's not really a support candle that I would take a trade on, solely being because we are within the previous candle. So basically what's in here is going to be like a lower time frame range. If we get another hourly candle which closes bullish like that, which is above that, that would be a good sign because we have confirmation of support, and we also have candles breaking highs and respecting lows and leaving the 4 hour zone, which we spoke about on the weekly outlook. So if I drop the 30-minute time frame, we can see this range a lot more clear. And if I just zoom in here, let me just delete that. If I just zoom in here, we have basically a support zone here across the board. Now this support zone has been respected as lower resistance on the way down. So price is pushing up. We've then broke the support, we've tapped back into the resistance, and then we've formed a new low. And essentially, if you're a seller in the market, this is your target. You're looking for some sort of lower resistance in here to sell back down to here. Any sort of continuation, you'd be looking down to these areas. But I'm only looking for buys. I'm not looking for sells. So if I just fast forward 30 minutes, that is the first 30 minutes of the new 4 hour candle. Okay. And if I just continue to skip, we can kind of see what price is doing. So at this stage, this is 7 a.m. Price has formed a support, pushed up, formed its resistance, and now it's formed a tire support. Okay, but we're still not above the range. The reason I wouldn't buy on that candle is solely that reason. If you think about these two candles tapping into this area and respecting the support, and then this candle actually at one point is very bullish. It's very, very bullish, but can't close above and rejects, and then closes bearish. So when the next candle closes bearish, yes, it forms a higher support, which is a good sign, but it still doesn't close outside of the range, and it still doesn't close above the high of the previous bearish candle, which formed our range on the lower time frames. So if I just drop the 30-minute time frame, as we can see, perfect example again, this support now turn resistance is holding, and it is being an important area. So essentially what you want to do is you want to be above that, and if there's volume in the market, you might be able to get in and ride the volume. The only other option is wait for a target to be formed, wait for price to pull back and respect these levels as support, and then continue. Target your target, look for your higher time frame target, and that's what you want to be doing. That's the sort of play I'm looking for. I'm not selling because I have no interest in selling. I'm just buying, okay? But I'm waiting for my opportunity. So if I just skip through 30 minutes, we can see that we have then broke down and we have closed outside of the 4 hour resistance zone, but we are still within the support zone. So technically we could just range in here, okay? If we want to sell, you'd be looking for closures below, because you can then pull back into the support zone and then look to leave. But this is also an area to potentially buy from. But for me, I've identified for here, above here in this region, is the safer buys for me, because we're leaving the 4 hour zone. We're also leaving the, we're trading into the cleaner area, because essentially here, between here and here, I've marked out as my clean area of traffic. So between this range, which is, what is it, about 80 pips or so, I've identified that as where I believe the easier opportunities will come from. So if we do get above here and we're not in down here, that's good. That's good, because we've then got confirmation. Okay, so if I just delete these off here, we can see that within the next candle, we actually reject the support quite strongly, and we actually close above the resistance, the daily resistance, and the support. So this is actually a really good sign. And this is London Open, so this is where volume's kicking in. So if I just bring on my long position, this is where I actually got involved in a buy. And I got involved in a buy as this candle was open. So the candle was, I think there was about 4 or 5 minutes left on the candle, and I entered a buy based on how impulsive it was at the time. So I was anticipating the momentum to carry on, and I was anticipating the possibility that this candle might close somewhere, say up here, right? So what I'm looking to do is get in. If we do get a closure above my entry, then as price comes down, it can then use the resistance as an area of support. So you've got like the support, now turn resistance, you've also the daily resistance, and you've also the 4 hour resistance zone. So you've got a lot of confluence there in terms of areas for potential rejection. So I was anticipating, if the next candle doesn't just open up and continue, if it does pull back, I know that I have a lot of sort of areas for cushion, you know. Even if I'm in drawdown, I'm fine, because unless these levels are broken, we're not going down, right? So I was anticipating that candle to close where it did, but it didn't. It actually closed in drawdown, but it still closed above the resistance and above the levels I wanted it to close at. So this is only the first 30 minutes of the 1 hour. Okay, so if we think about the first 30 minutes has closed how it has, I'm expecting the next 30 minutes to close something like that, anticipating the volume. So essentially we should have one big fat bullish 1 hour candle, which is made up of these two. But if we go forward 30 minutes, we can see that this is how the next 30 minute close, which means the 1 hour candle closed like this, which is still great because it's closed above resistance, closed above daily level, closed above 4 hour zone, closed above 30 minute support. So this essentially could have been your entry. So that's something I've been, I would say, maybe battling with a little bit, is once I see price doing what I wanted to do, if there's, less than 10 minutes, sometimes I'll get in on the candle, get in on the trade in the anticipation that we're going to continue. But the downside to that is what we have just seen. Now, thankfully, we didn't close below, because if we close below this level, sorry, that's an awful line. If we close below the resistance, I may have closed the trade. The reason being is because if we close below, as price is going to push up, this level that has been a strong resistance area earlier on in the day could then act as a resistance again, and price could then continue down, and we might just range. So the fact that we have closed above, we can then use this as support and continue. So until we close below 157.960, I'm remaining in the trade. So I'm not too worried about what price does in the meantime. And if I just skip through, this is going to come back. If I just skip through one more hour, excuse me, that's how the 1 hour closed. And if we look at that on the 30-minute time frame, that's what you want to see. It's formed its higher support, and we're starting to break out and break up, which is good. So at this time, again, next candle comes down, but it respects the lows. It respects the lows of the previous candles. It's respecting the support. And then the next candle, again, we form a support again. We're still respecting the support. And then we start to continue out and above. Now, at the time of this, if I go back to the 1 hour, what I was looking at was when this candle closed. This candle closed at 11 a.m. Right? I actually had this level marked up here, this resistance, or this support, sorry. So this early candle closed above that. And this, where this closed, or where this 1 hour support is, it's roughly at about 0.5%. Now I know from my data, I usually get there 85% of the time when I enter a trade. So what I actually done was, because we actually closed above the support with the new hourly open, what I wanted to do was I wanted to move my stop, because I know there's only about 67% of the time I'll get a 1-to-1 when I enter a trade, and that's roughly what this is. Give me roughly a 1-to-1. So what I've done was I moved my stop loss up to around 0.5% to lock in that, and I was just going to see what price done. And if I just skip through the next 30-minute candle, that's how that 30-minute candle closed. So it opened and pushed up, respected the high, and then we started to break down. And as it started to break down, it hit my stop loss. So I'd already secured 0.5%, which is grand. And if we look at this on the 50-minute time frame, we can see that we have just basically closed below the previous two candles. Now, that's not really a good sign. However, from a structure perspective, this is our most recent support and resistance. So until we literally, break back in here, that's awful. But until we actually break back below the resistance, then there's really nothing to worry about, because if we respect structure, we should continue. And that's what price does. It ends up continuing, and it ends up going on to achieve the actual target. So that's how the next 30-minute candle did. It just pulled back into these areas and continued. However, based on my data, and I was happy to just lock in 0.5 and kind of see it as like a risk-free trade in a sense, because there was every chance that because we did close below, that the next candle come down here, and then we're back at entry, and I'm already up at the time roughly about 35 pips or so. So that's sort of my trade. And if I just go through, we did tap into the resistance, and typically what I do with my targets is I'll front run them by about 2 pips. So if my target is bang on the resistance at 870, I'll have my target at 850, just roughly. So it's going to get there before it actually taps resistance, because we do know that sometimes it can skim your TP that's at resistance, like this, for example. So that was my sort of trade on that. And what I identified in here, these sort of levels, because this sort of support zone across the board, we had sort of rejected that there, and then we sort of had rejection of it here, and then once we started to break down from here, I knew it was sort of, I was comfortable in doing what I do and managing my position. So although I did have it marked as a clean area, it essentially wasn't the cleanest move to there, but all in all, targets were achieved, and it was a winning position of course, reflecting back on this trade, I was a little bit eager, first and foremost, to get into the trade. If the 30-minute candle had already been open 26 minutes, I could wait another 4 minutes, you know. And if it goes without me, it goes without me. You know, if this had a closed way back in here and rejected sharply, I would have been in, you know, a catch 22. I would have been stuck in the middle, hoping for price to go this way, and you know, emotionally trading potentially in terms of managing the risk. So waiting for the confirmation, which was the close above, which is what I said I would wait for. I did kind of eagerly get involved when I should have waited for a close. So reflecting on this, you know, that is one thing. The second thing, managing the position. Yes, it hit targets. It's a good thing for data collection, because um it'll tell me, you know, it'll add to sort of my trades, which do continue. But at this moment in time, you know, I'm winning more when I'm doing what I'm doing. So why change it? You know. So that was a good thing. Um, but plenty of opportunities to even get add additional entries to this, but that's not something I do. But just from solely looking at these candles, and especially on the 15-minute, when we're respecting the supports and pushing up and breaking, there's opportunities to mirror what's left. So all in all, a winning trade on GJ today. 0.5% locked in when it was going for roughly 0.9 to 1%, which did work out in the end. But yeah, that's my trade, so I'll get that uploaded. But yeah, any questions or queries in relation to this, yeah, certainly leave a comment.